have noticed that I didn't do a Star Trek Prodigy video last week. That's because I was waiting for this part of the season to end and I can cover both parts of it. So here we are. This is the last two episodes, or episodes 9 and 10 of Star Trek Prodigy, A Moral Star, at least for the time being, because it's coming back next year. So as always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and if you haven't seen episodes 9 and 10 of Star Trek Prodigy, this will contain spoilers. 9 picks up pretty much where episode 8 left off, with Rock Talk retelling their story, or retelling her story I should say, of when they were trapped in time. And it seems that the crew's finally bonded as a team, but they're still worried about the Diviner being out there and finding them again. And you know he does, because that's what this guy does, man. They get a message from the Diviner and he wants to make a deal to get the ship back. Basically they need to show back up to the asteroid from episode 1 and surrender the ship, or he's going to kill all the miners on the asteroid. And Gwyn pretty much straight away isn't having it. She knows it's going to be a trap. Rock Talk wants to go back, and they realise they can't save all the miners anyways, the ship's too small for them all. Jankin wants to contact Starfleet, so it comes down to two choices of jumping to Federation space or jumping to where the Diviner is, because they don't have enough power for more than one protostar jump. Now, at the bit where Jankin speaks up and says he wants to attempt a rescue, I really thought that this was going to be the point in the series where Dal was on board with this, and on board with the rest of the team, because I've mentioned it in previous episodes that the Dal Downer dickhead moments, as I call them, are probably the lowest points of which is maybe the best first season that Star Trek has ever had. Dal really does let this season down consistently, and lets the sort of gelling and harmony of the crew down quite a bit as well, and he doesn't disappoint here for 1 second. But it's not the fact that he doesn't want to go because he wants to save his own backside or be selfish. He basically doesn't want to jump in without having a solid plan or way out. And in this episode, we're going to see that all the lessons that the crew have learned over these first 8 episodes are starting to come together. They're working as a team, they're talking, they're not really going off and doing their own thing or having any sorts of arguments. So there is a bit more of a harmony and a structure, and this will pay off in the second episode as well. But as always, I'm going to get to that in a moment. So we see them all working together on a plan, but we don't really see what the plan is. It's a bit of a training montage situation. And when they do the protostar jump back to the Diviner, I say this all the time, but this show looks so good. It's one of the things that's making it one of the best Trek shows ever, is how good it looks and the stuff that they're doing with the space shots. We've not had a really huge amount of space combat in this show, but just the way that the ships in the background and the planets and the colours and the nebulas and the gases and the warp drive and the protostar drive, it's all so good and it looks so beautiful. Star Trek Discovery, you could really learn from this show. And as soon as they come out of the jump, the Diviner is waiting for them, and this guy seems to have a real grudge against Starfleet because the crew has replicated their own Starfleet uniforms, and as soon as he sees it, his tone totally changes. And it's not the only thing that changes. He wants to change the deal, and he wants Gwyn back as well. So she hands herself over in exchange for the others leaving on the Diviner's ship, the Rev 12. And again, this show's raising a lot more questions than it is giving us answers. As soon as he takes the ship, Janeway doesn't seem happy about it, so he deactivates her and replaces her with evil Tron Janeway. So if you've seen the episode, you'll know what I mean. She looks like a cross between a character from the first Tron movie and the Leia hologram as in Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. That. So the episode ends with the protostar flying off, leaving the crew on the asteroid, and the Diviner tells Gwyn why he needs the ship, which is for the salvation of his people. And we're about to get a big massive reveal when they find out that the protocore from the ship is missing, so it's just a normal starship, there's nothing special there. And it turns out that they've hidden the protocore in Murph, who's also in Zero, or in Zero's sort of armour or suit or shell or whatever you want to call it. And this is kind of where the first part ends, and that's why I didn't cover the episode solely on its own last week, is there's not a lot that happens in the first part of this episode. When I recorded my review of it, it was only like 5 minutes, and I was like, not got a lot to talk about here. And I know I'm not the only one that's saying that. A few other channels and reviews have said that as well, so I thought I'll store it till we get both episodes and we can see the larger picture here. So with episode 10, A Moral Start Part 2, this episode really delivers, and it does feel like it's a bit of a close of a chapter for the show. They're definitely moving on, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. So the Diviner is stuck without a protocore, and this is what's really interesting. The reveals in this episode are fascinating, as he says that he's never going to make it to Starfleet without it. So initially you're left questioning of, he seems to hate Starfleet, but he wants to go and find them. That's a bit odd. And the gang are still on the asteroid after last week's episode, basically trapped and weightless with the shields and the entire asteroid collapsing. And I love their little jetpacks that they have. I'd love if they could have brought this into Discovery or Picard, but I don't think they'd do it for practical reasons. It wouldn't really work. But it looks great, and it really reminded me, because we've had the Mandalorian flying about in the last few episodes of Boba Fett, that, yeah, this is a really effective tool. I don't know why Star Trek hasn't come up with it sooner in its 60-year history. So Dreadnought shows up looking for the core, but now they've got universal translators. If you remember in the first episode, none of the aliens on the planet could talk to each other because they didn't understand each other's language. So now they're able to communicate and work together. And they rebel with a little bit of a help from Dal. So in the second part of this two-parter, he is improving. You know, he's getting better. This is probably the one episode 10, where Dal isn't really a downer and a bit of a dickhead. So after they've saved the prisoner, they take off after Gwyn and the protostar, which turns out Janeway is still actually the original hologram Janeway. Gwyn has put up some defences, meaning that she can take control whenever she wants, and she also gets some upgrades as well. She's now able to interact with the environment, most notably the Diviner's face. And this is it, this is the key bit when we get some answers to the Diviner. And yeah, after 10 episodes we're finally getting answers, and I was so excited about this. You might not be though, so be prepared. And we get some answers that Diviner is actually from the future. So there's been a lot of theories around this show about where the protostar's from and where the Diviner's from. You know, the timeline with when Voyager arrived back in the Alpha Quadrant and how long the protostar's been in the Delta Quadrant doesn't really add up. The Starfleet uniforms are totally different and things like that. And the Diviner basically says, yeah, look, I'm from the future. So that's one theory that's been confirmed straight away. And he's been sent back to help save his people. So at this moment in time, they are still out there somewhere. Great thing about this episode is he uses the holodeck as a flashback exposition dump, which is great. They should really do this more in Star Trek rather than just explaining it to us. It's just go, well, would you want to go and have a look at it? Let's go down to deck 6 and jump on the holodeck and we can see what happened here. So we find out that the Diviner's people basically believed that they were the only ones in the universe. 50 years after first contact with Starfleet, the city or the planet is now a ruin. Starfleet showing up divided the culture into people who basically wanted to keep it the way it is, then other people who embraced the fact that aliens were out there and maybe wanted to embrace this larger community. So the Diviner's really got two missions here. He wants to stop first contact, and he also wants to eradicate Starfleet as well for what he's done to them and his people. So he's created a sort of booby trap program within the protostar ship that the second it encounters another Federation or Starfleet ship is a program that's built in like a virus that will activate, where they can activate any Starfleet ship's weapons and destroy and turn them on one another. A little bit like how the Cylons done it in the Battlestar Galactica reboot, I suppose. But this does create a really interesting dilemma for the protostar crew, is that they can now know that they can never return to the Federation without posing this risk to Starfleet or any Federation ship that they encountered. Which is a good plot point, and this means that they'll need to actively avoid Starfleet going forward. So the show is going in a direction that I didn't think we'd see. I did think this Diviner storyline was going to go on a lot longer than it did. I thought it was going to be well into season 2, but they seem to be wrapping this up a lot quicker than I had anticipated, at least. Dal and Zero make it on board the protostar from the Rev 12 and save Gwyn and the ship. Zero leaves his shell and overwhelms the Diviner's mind, and this also affects Gwyn, as you know, you can't look directly at Zero without going insane, but she sees little reflections in Dal's Starfleet badge, so it kind of wipes her memory. not all her personality, but just her sort of immediate memory. So she seems to, we don't get an answer about it, she seems to forget what her dad has told her about their people, time travel, and the plot to destroy the Federation. And I'll be very interested to see how that's going to pick up when this season comes back. Well, the Diviner is now just a shell of himself, so they could bring him back, not only just bring him back as he is, but maybe somehow reverse the damage it's been done and bring him back as a villain. And yeah, this was interesting, this twist about they can't really go looking for the Federation or Starfleet, I think is fascinating, especially for the end of the episode. Because we do actually see the real life Janeway, who does look sort of age appropriate. She's got the old Catherine Janeway haircut that she had from season 4 or 5 in Voyager onwards. She's a bit grey, she's an admiral, but this is the interesting part, she seems to be on a Dauntless class ship, which is a ship from the end of, I think it's season 4 of Voyager, that the alien shows up and he says it's an experimental Starfleet ship. So it seems that Starfleet have redesigned the quantum slipstream technology and the Dauntless class ship, because the bridge looks almost identical. As soon as I seen the back wall behind that ensign or lieutenant, when it cut to Janeway's ship, I'm like, that's the Dauntless, and then we see it. I'll need to go back and take a closer look, because I'm not sure how identical or what differences there are. But man, this is interesting. So Janeway is out looking for the protostar and chakotay, and the protostar now has to avoid Starfleet and the Federation at all costs. So while we didn't get all the answers that I wanted here, I really like the resolution to this part of the story, and like I say, the direction that it's going to be going in, because Janeway is going to be chasing them and they're going to be avoiding Janeway to help save her and save her ship. So I think, yeah, I'm really excited about this show. I mean, I enjoyed it so much, but I think the next season or the next part is going to be a real level up for these characters and the storytelling. I hope we do get a lot more answers in there, but I'm going to do a separate video or maybe even a live stream on that. So make sure you subscribe and you don't miss it. If you've made it this far, please leave a like on the video as always, and let me know what you think as well. Did you enjoy the first 2 parts of Star Trek Prodigy, or the first 10 episodes? I really liked it. I think they could have sped up the story a little bit more, but everything else I'm perfectly happy with. And I'm so happy that I decided to watch this show, because of all the new Trek shows, I thought this was going to be the one that lost me and I kind of tuned out, but it's the exact opposite, that I want more, at least until Strange New Worlds come back on. We've also got Discovery next week, so I'm going to be reviewing that as well. So as I said, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching so much. If you want to reach out to me, you can do it in the comments here, or you can reach me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. My name's Al, thanks for